We got 3 games done. That's your 3 earliest games finished. It means we got 10 more to go for the rest of 2019. So again, for some who may be watching this, it might be already 2020 where you are. Don't spoil it. If the world's going to come to an end, don't spoil it. Let us find out for ourselves if there's some kind of a cataclysmic event coming for 2020. And for all the people who don't like the idea that we're all heralding this as the end of the decade, really shouldn't be watching TV right now, because everywhere I look, it's best of the decade, best of the decade, best of the decade. So apparently there's a lot of people who think this is the end of the decade and don't really care whether it's the end of 2020 or it's the end of 2019. And it's interesting. All right, first up, this was... So, all right, here's where we're at with Boston. They're on pace for 20, count them, 20 losses in past regulation, in overtime or shootouts. And I know, people are going to say, well, hey, at least they're getting points. Yeah, they're not winning games. So what makes me nervous about this is they're not winning enough games. Now, they committed today on a 3-game winning streak, but this kind of felt like the Bruins that I was watching before the 3-game winning streak, the one that had struggled to win over, had 3 wins in 14 games, something like that, 1 win in 9 games. There was an early penalty by PK Subban. It's like, okay, this is good. Marchand would score on that power play. That's his 20th of the season from Pastrnak and Grzelcyk at 2:03. So things look good early, and right away, that Akbar magnet, meaning it's a trap game, I'm going, well, maybe not. Maybe it's not a trap. Blackwood denied Pastrnak. The Devils pushed at 9.5 minutes. Halak was solid. The Bruins were doubling the Devils in shots at that stage. The shots would start to even out as we get towards the end of that period, and I get a little nervous because that's kind of what happens. Second period, the Devils get a power play in the first minute. They don't score. The Bruins use that penalty kill to get a little bit of momentum, which leads to a goal. Joachim Nordstrom from Corrali and Carlo at 4:27. And looked like the Devils were getting better. Just didn't have any goals to show for it until 8:58 when Coleman scores from Gusev and Vatanen. Don't look now. Nikita Gusev is heating up. This guy is starting to produce the way he was supposed to. He's starting to live up to the hype. It just took a little while to get there. The Bruins got a power play, which turned into a 4-on-4. Vatanen ends up hitting the post. Blackwood held Pastrnak out as well. Pressure by the Devils at around 16.5 minutes. And then there was a weird, wicked bounce off the boards that went right through the Bruins' crease, which I was like, it's really fortunate there weren't any Devils in that position because Halak was turned backwards on it. But anyways, it's 2-1 after 2, so you should feel confident going into the third, right? Early Devils power play. They didn't score on that. There was solid pressure at around the 5-6 minute mark. The Devils get another power play, and this was being forced by the pressure in the Bruins zone. And as much as Jack Edwards wasn't happy with that other power play, no, it was a power play, Jack. That was a legit call on the Bruins. He was mad because he thought Miles Wood was holding, and it doesn't make up for the obvious penalty Boston takes at center ice. So the Bruins were outchanced by a mile in the third period. The only silver lining they had was that the Corrali line was playing really well. But as I'm writing that, puck goes the other way. Jesper Bratt tips a shot from Subban at the point. He sure gets a secondary assist, and at 13 minutes and 11 seconds of the third, we're tied. We're tied between the Devils and the Bruins, and at that point, the Akbar magnet looks pretty darn comfortable up there. The Bruins seemed to wake up after that goal. The Devils got close to one at 17.5 minutes, and the Bruins allowed way too many shots. That third period was a team that went, all right, well, we've got this. Reminded me of Tampa early in the season. There are other teams I've seen do that as well. We're like, all right, well, we've got this. We're ahead. And then they can't kick it into the next gear after the tire. In overtime, Blackwood denied Marchand, post for Grzelcyk. The Bruins got a power play with 11 seconds left. I thought it was cute that they tried to call a timeout and all this and plan something out. And again, Edwards and Brickley are talking about how there's lots of time. 11 seconds is lots of time. And I'm thinking, do you guys know how long 11 seconds? That's not enough time. So we go to a shootout, and in the shootout, Severson gets the eventual winner. So the New Jersey Devils get 2 points today against the Boston Bruins. The Bruins, again, they're on pace for 20 overtime loss points, which absolutely makes the record look better than it is. If you got rid of the loser point tomorrow, Boston's record would fall. And all this talk about, hey, they're third overall in the NHL. And I heard that a lot on the Boston broadcast. This is not the third best team in the NHL with the way they're playing. They had the Devils down, and then they just stopped. 3 stars are Severson, Blackwood, and Coleman. I normally disagree when all 3 stars are from one team in a shootout victory. I have no problem with that in this case. Although, Halak with 42 saves on 44 shots probably deserved something there. Blackwood saves 26 out of 28 at the other end. Power plays 1 for 3 for the Boston Bruins, 0 for 4 for New Jersey because their power play sucks. Shots were 14-10 for Boston in the first, 12-9 New Jersey in the second, 19-8 for New Jersey in the third, and then 3-2 in overtime again in favor of New Jersey, 44-30. I think where the jinx came in was Jack Edwards before the games even started. Blackwood's at the bench getting his water bottle and he goes, Blackwood not anxious to take the net. And who could blame him? He's going to face a lot of it today. He's going to face a lot of pucks. And Boston got outshot 44-30. So, yeah, just based on that. And you're like, all right, this is going to be ugly. All right, next up, the Islanders in against the Washington Capitals. Caps. This is not a great game for the Capitals. And it's an interesting one because I don't think Barry Trotz is going to come out of today saying, all right, that's the kind of game we want you guys to play. I think he's going to come out of this saying, you know what? We get 2 points. We get the victory. I don't want to see that kind of play again in the third period. So first period, the Islanders get a power play. They didn't score on it. However, Casey Cizikas, who had a monster game today, he scores from Mayfield and Komarov at 7:13. And the Caps allowed the first goal for the 8th time in 10 games. Allowing the first goal is tough because that means you're fighting from behind constantly. Eventually, it catches up with you. We saw that happen to Toronto this season. We saw that happen to, I believe, Calgary has had stretches too where they allow that first goal. Then they'd come back and win it. But eventually, you're not able to come back and win it. The Islanders, it was really their style of play in the first half of the period. Nelson would then score from Leddy and Beauvillier at 10:39. And then it became a Capitals game. Kuznetsov scores from Orlov 14 seconds later. Wilson would add one from Backstrom and Ovechkin at 14:17. Holtby then denies Kuhnhackl, and there was a late power play for the Isles that would not score. But again, it kind of felt like a Capitals game after that point. Second period, Kuznetsov scores from Oshie in the first minute, 44 seconds. And I put up here, Isles need to play their game. The Islanders need to take some of the wind out of the sails of the Capitals, and they really didn't. Cizikas would score from Martin at 4:27. Kuhnhackl would add one, so that's his, second in 2 games? He's on a roll. He scores from Barzal and Lee at 12:34. And there was lots of poor plays defensively by both teams to that stage of the game. Both teams that strive and take pride in their defensive numbers, and there wasn't a whole lot of pride being taken in the play in that game up to that point. The Caps got a power play, they wouldn't score on it. And in third period, it was the Semyon Varlamov show. Varlamov denied Orlov early. The Caps were really pushing to tie it. Backstrom had a really good chance that was turned aside. There was 4-on-4 play at about the 7-minute mark. The Caps then would end up pinning down the Islanders with 5 minutes left in that period. Just could not get that tying goal. The Islanders took a penalty at 19 minutes. Todd Reardon says, all right, I'm going to take a timeout. Whatever they planned in the timeout, the Islanders countered it. The Islanders held on and won 4-3 in Washington. So the Capitals are better on the road than they are at home. I guess that's part of the storyline here. And the Islanders, resilient bounce-back game for them. They jumped back past the Pittsburgh Penguins in the standings. So Varlamov saves 34 out of 37. Holtby 18 out of 22. Your 3 stars are Cizikas, Kuznetsov, and Kuhnhackl. Power plays, both teams went 0 for 2 on the power play. Shots were 11-7 Washington in the first, 11-10 Islanders in the second, and then 17-4 in favor of the Capitals in the third. Like I said, that is not a period of hockey that Barry Trotz can be happy with. He'll pat Varlamov on the shoulder and say, great game, thanks for helping us out there, and he's not going to be happy with his players. You can't allow 17 shots in one period. Final shots 38-22 in favor of the Capitals, but they come out of today with the regulation loss. And thanks to all those overtime loss points, Boston's virtually tied with the Capitals, which just proves just how ridiculous overtime loss points really, truly are. I don't like overtime loss points. People know that about me. I've never liked the thought of having home ice in a playoff series or having an easier opponent because you lost at a later time in the game than a team lost in regulation. It's just strange to me. All right, moving along. Anaheim eventually showed up in this game against Vegas, but my God, they don't want to see Vegas for a while. Stone had a stick break early in this game, and there was no call. It's noteworthy because Stone's reaction and turn to the referee was comical. He's very, very... he doesn't have a good poker face when he's playing hockey. Let's just put it that way. It's very expressive. Vegas had an 8-1 lead in shots at 5.5 minutes. But against the flow of the play, Corbinian Holzer credited with a goal at 8 minutes and 13 seconds. Ducks get the first goal. They had the first goal against Philly, too. Close call at 11:04, but no goal for Vegas. It was really close, didn't go in. Vegas is way ahead in shots, but Gibson was holding until Stone would score from Pacioretty at 14:36, and the Ducks were really struggling to get shots. And they pointed out that the Ducks had 15 shots in a game against Vegas once this year. They had 18 shots in another. They would eventually get their shots, but through that first period, they really didn't. There was a late Vegas power play. Holzer looked like he got hurt in the corner. He would come back in the second period, but he was out for the rest of the first. And then Tuck's credited with a goal at 19:46. And all I put up here is Manson own goal, WTF Josh. And I looked at the replay over and over and over again. What happens is Gibson's laying back to lay on the puck. As a defenseman, your play is to take said puck when it's loose and kind of nudge it underneath the shoulder of your goaltender to get a whistle. He nudged it into the net. And you could see him watch the puck cross the line and go, oh, like he couldn't believe he did that. It's one of those things where it's like, the whistle hasn't gone. That's a live puck. You probably shouldn't have fired it into your own net. Or in this case, nudged it ever so carefully into his own net. And it was a problem because Vegas outplayed them so badly in that first period. If it had been 1-1 after one, you've got to think that Dallas Eakins might have been able to sell his guys on, hey, we can steal this one here. It's a 1-1 tie, and they've outshot us so badly. In the second, Vegas was dominating in terms of puck control. They weren't getting a lot of shots, though, early in that period. So they had a lot of puck control, and their zone time was much better than Anaheim's. But the Ducks improved as the period went along. And both teams were defending and blocking shots really well until Riley Smith scores at 17:55. This was a game that was very allergic to assists. And I put up Vegas as a bad matchup for the Ducks. Just is. So it was 3-1 after two. The Vegas Golden Knights coming into today were 17-1-1 when they're leading after two periods. We know how this goes, right? The Ducks got a power play. Fleury and Vegas, that penalty kill held. The Ducks power play was mostly ineffective until about 10 seconds left, and they got a couple of good chances. But Nick Holden actually was very good in that third period in terms of being a solid penalty killer that kept the puck out of the net. And then Stevenson got a post at the other end of the ice. And then Vegas is given a penalty shot on a slash by Josh Manson. You know, Josh Manson a couple years ago, I thought he was fantastic. I thought he could do everything out there. I thought he was one of the best defensemen in the league. And I have absolutely no shame in saying it. I think he was one of the best defensemen in the league. And now, a game like this, holy crap, Josh Manson. So, Marchessault scores on the penalty shot because, of course, he scores on the penalty shot at 10:56. Because, of course, he did. You just don't do it. Anyways, Marchessault gets the penalty shot goal, and it's over. The Ducks got a power play. They wouldn't score on it, but right after Stone gets out of the penalty box, Silverberg gets a goal at 14:34. That was also unassisted because what are assists? Not today. So Silverberg gets the goal. That's his 14th of the season, so he's on pace for 28, 30 goals. They pull the goalie with 3 minutes left. Well, all that does is allow Vegas to get another one to just make it worse. Marchessault hits the empty net. There are assists on that goal. Schmidt and Smith, 18:06. So there's 5 goals on the board for Vegas and 3 assists. And Riley Smith with a goal and an assist today. So that's your empty netter. It's 5-2. The only other note here is Shea Theodore had a fight with Maxime Comtois with about 20 seconds left. And that's Theodore's first fight as a member of the Vegas Golden Knights. That's what they said anyways. So yeah, 5-2 win. Overall dominant victory. This was never in doubt. And so Vegas is the number 1 team in the Pacific as we reach the new year. They have 50 points, 43 games, and they can't get caught before midnight. So there you go. Gibson saved 36 out of 40. I thought he played well. He just didn't have goal support. Fleury saves 26 out of 28. 445th victory for Fleury. He is now 6th on the all-time list all by himself. 3 stars are Smith, Marchessault, and Fleury. Power plays 0 for 2 for Anaheim, 0 for 1 for the Vegas Golden Knights. Shots were 22-5 Vegas in the first, 12-11 in favor of Anaheim in the second, and 11-8 Anaheim in the third. So final shots 41-28, but Anaheim's not going to be happy about the second and third period because that first period was so terrible. And for Manson, I don't know what he's got to do, but this is benching material. The slash that led to the penalty shot and him putting the puck in his own net, that's 2 of the 5 goals scored tonight, and one of the goals that was scored was an empty netter. So it's 2 of the 4 that were scored while his goaltender was in net. And Gibson didn't have a chance on that one. He tapped across the line in the first period. So there you go. You guys are all caught up in the early games. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. Just happened upon this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. I'll talk to you again soon.